Good day, everybody. It's Chris Gallagher here at the Preacher's Pen, sharing with you our third day of study from Psalm 23, one of the most loved Psalms that we know. And I want to encourage you, if I can, if you haven't read Psalm 23, to spend some time reading that Psalm. Today, I want to share with you 4 requirements that sheep need. Now, this is pretty big. When you read Psalm 23, you may or may not know this. Now, let me give you some background. I didn't know this. In fact, I'm not a shepherd. I've never been around sheep. I think I saw some sheep one time and I was able to pet them, but that's pretty much about it. Outside of a petting zoo, I've seen them driving along the interstate, so I'm really not familiar with them. But as I've studied some of this material, I've realized something. I've realized number one, sheep are not the smartest animals ever. In fact, some people consider sheep to be some of the dumbest animals. And the Bible compares us to sheep. Well, let's just leave that there just for a moment. Let's dig a little bit deeper into Psalm 23 with the requirements of sheep. Now, you remember, we began on Monday by reading through Psalm 23. Yesterday, we talked about our trust in the shepherd and how if we're going to say the phrase, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," then we have to trust in the shepherd. And we know that our shepherd is the Lord. He is Jehovah. He's Jehovah God, who cares about us, who wants us to know him, who desires to have a relationship with us. And that's why he sent his son Jesus. Now, David, in writing this psalm, is very familiar with what it takes to be a shepherd because David was a shepherd. He wasn't just a king. He wasn't just a giant killer, but David was a shepherd. Now, yesterday I mentioned to you the first few verses of Psalm 23 where it says this: "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, and he leads me beside the still waters, and he restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake." Now, there's a very interesting book that I would encourage you to at least take a look at, and there's going to be a link in our notes below this video, whether you're watching this on YouTube or watching this on Rumble or maybe even our website or even Facebook. I want to share the link with you to a book by the name of a man called Phillip Keller. This book is called A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23. And I don't recommend 2 books, but I do recommend this one. This helped to open my eyes to what a shepherd does and to what sheep actually do. Because I found this interesting. In our trust section that we mentioned, there are 4 requirements of sheep. Now, we probably have an awful lot of requirements. Let me see if I can pull that slide up. There it is. These 4 requirements of sheep are pretty simple. Number 1, sheep will not lay down unless they're free from all care. Number 2, sheep will not lay down unless they're free from problems with other sheep. Number 3, sheep will not lay down until they are no longer tormented by insects, which means they're not going to lay down if they are tormented. Number 4, sheep will not lay down if they are in need of finding food. So when you read this passage, I notice the second verse. The very first thing I read in that verse is, "He makes me to lie down in green pastures." You see, as we talked about trust yesterday, one of those very interesting qualities was, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And the word want, as we mentioned, talks about no longer having need of. Well, take a look at this list again. Take a look at the list that's right here. For you to be able to lay down, if you're this sheep and the Lord is your shepherd, he makes me to lie down in green pastures. Well, that means some things. If we look at the physical relationship of a shepherd and sheep, we find out this. If you're going to lay down, you have to be free from the cares of the world that bring us fear. Did you notice that? You've got to be free from all fear. And that's sometimes the cares of the world. We care so much about the world brings us so much fear, it's very, very difficult. But sheep aren't going to lay down unless they're free from all fear. Go down to the next verse that we looked at in verse 4. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for your rod and your staff, they are with me, and they comfort me." I'm going to walk that because I know that you're with me. The shepherd is going to take away our fear because we know that God is going to protect us, that God is going to be there for us. That's why so many individuals take a very personal view of Romans chapter 8, where we know that the Spirit intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words, that all things work together for good. And while we don't understand all the things of this world, we know that God watches over us, and we know that God protects us. God knows the very number of the hairs that are on our head. If he takes care of the sparrows, he's going to take care of us. So when we dig into Psalm 23 and we read these very, very simple words that we can lie down in green pastures, a sheep is only going to lay down if it's free from all fear. The Bible tells us about 364 or 65 times, depending upon your translation, do not fear. Have no fear. Don't be afraid, because we know that God is with us. And it helps us to go throughout our day realizing that. But number two, a sheep will not lay down unless they're free from problems with other sheep. If we have the Lord as our shepherd, we don't have need. And those problems with other sheep that may keep us awake at night, the shepherd is going to take care of those. In fact, if you read the New Testament, you'll find out that if we know that somebody has a problem, we need to go talk with them. If we have a problem with somebody else, we need to talk with them, knowing that God is in control and our shepherd is going to take care of that. Why? Because God has given us this book that we can read, and we can see that we're to do unto others as we want done to ourselves, that we are, Philippians chapter 2, able to reach out to other people and encourage them. As we look out for our own interests, we're encouraging the people around us. So we do have that relationship with the shepherd, and that trickles down into our relationship with each other if we are the sheep of the shepherd. So for a sheep to lay down, it must be free from all fear. Number two, it must be free from problems with other sheep. Number three, it must be free from being tormented from insects. Those things that bug you. It's like if you have that fly that's always around you as you're outside and you keep thinking, why is this here? It consumes your thoughts. It consumes your needs. See, the shepherd has to be aware and realize what is bugging, no pun intended, what is bugging that sheep, and has to be willing to remove those problems. That's what God is willing to do for us. We turn our lives over to him. We're going to face some storms. We're going to face some difficulties. But are we asking God to remove those? Are we trusting the shepherd of our souls? So as you go through this text, once again, remember that first verse, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So a sheep will not lay down unless it's free from all fear. A sheep will not lay down unless it is free from problems with other sheep. A sheep will not lay down unless it's free from insects. And finally, a sheep will not lay down if they're in need of finding food. So they're kind of like us, right? When we have a full belly, what do we usually say at Thanksgiving? Well, we want to take a nap. We have a big Sunday meal following services, and what happens? We say, oh, I got to go home and get that Sunday afternoon nap. Sheep are the exact same way. If they're hungry, they're not going to be able to settle down. They're not going to be able to relax. Well, what about our food? Not our physical food, but our spiritual food. There's a lot of people in the world today who are trying to search, and they're searching through a bunch of man-made things when they need to be looking at God and God's word and what God has in store for us today. So I would encourage you, where are you finding your food, your spiritual food? Are we digging into the scriptures to see what God is going to tell us? Because God is going to take away our fears if we trust in him. Now, we're going to have some fears from time to time, but who are we going to look to? We're going to trust in ourselves, or are we going to trust in God? There's a lot that's in the world. These cares of the world are going to bring us down. Let's make sure that we are trusting in God to take away our fears. Let's make sure that we are trusting in God in our relationships with individuals around us. Let us make sure that we're trusting in God for all of those maybe little things, those little tiny insects, if you will, that are nagging us and annoying us. Let us be sure as we are progressing towards the promise that we are finding our spiritual food in God. So as you look at that's around you, as you look at that graphic that's there, ask yourself the question, am I willing to lay down? Have those requirements been met? And if they haven't, here's what you need to do. You need to return to the shepherd. You need to go back to the shepherd of your souls. You need to open God's word, and you need to see what God's word has in store for you. Because remember our text, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters, and he restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Are you willing to lay down? Have you put your faith, your trust, and your life in the hands of the shepherd, in the hands of Jehovah God, the God who cares for us, the God who wants a relationship with us, the God who desires that? We know from the book of James in the New Testament that if we draw near to God, he will draw near to us. Are you drawing near to him? As you think about these 4 things that's on my screen over here for you, it's right here, if I can point there. Are you seeing those requirements and realizing that maybe you need to draw closer to the shepherd? Dig through Psalm 23. We'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to share more of that information with you. But be sure to check out our website at preacherspen.org, totally redesigned as of today. You can find a lot of information that's there. But if you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble, be sure to subscribe to our channel. If you're on Facebook, be sure to give us a like. If you found us just randomly, let us know exactly how you did that. We'd be glad to hear from you. If you've got a question, let us know. Be glad to answer that on our podcast. That's right, preacherspenpodcast.com, and you can check us out. But I hope that you have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you soon.